We're going to hear from Gunda Schumann. Gunda Schumann is from Germany. She's a lawyer, sociologist, activist, member of the board of LAS Reloaded EV. She's going to talk about strategies of LAS Reloaded and other lesbian groups against transgenderism. And thank you so much, Gunda, for coming. And I'm really pleased to hand over to you and listen to you.
I will talk today about activities of, I pronounce it, Lesbisches Aktionszentrum, LAS Reloaded, and other lesbian groups against transgenderism. Included lesbian networking on this issue, which is very important. This is an addendum to the WDI conference of 2 weeks ago, a radical feminist response to transgenderism, what is to be done. LAS Reloaded wants to give their share on this very important issue. First of all, for all of you who may not be so well informed about us, I will tell you a little bit about the background of LAS Reloaded. In 2018, LAS Reloaded was established in Berlin after an exhibition about its predecessor, LAS, that has been active during the 70s and 80s as the first lesbian activist group in Germany. The graphic, which you see on the right side, shows spin-offs of the old HAW and LAS groups. HAW means Homosexual Action West Berlin. As you may remember, Germany had been split until the 90s, and West Berlin was part of the West, but was an enclave. So during these decades, the late 40s till the 90s, West Berlin was a very special place to live, and it was a great place for lesbians. So what is LAS all about? According to its concept, LAS Reloaded wants to preserve lesbian history and lesbian visibility, articulate lesbian interests in public, promote equal rights for women and men, organize and participate in national and international networking and meetings. This is particularly necessary at current times, when gender identity ideology is threatening to erase lesbians and lesbian spaces. On the left side, you see a bit more deliberated the aims and purposes and the activities. For example, in addition, public articulation of lesbian interests, promotion of intergenerational exchange, promotion of education, art, history, with focus on women. Activities, public relation and organization of events, administering of entrusted archives of lesbians, very important, entrusted estates and archives of lesbians, interviews of contemporary witnesses and organization and participation in national, international networking and meetings. Now I will come to the actual topic of this afternoon and would like to start with an inventory. What have lesbians lost already due to transgenderism? First of all, organizations and networks. In Germany, I could mention the so-called Lesbenring, which had been an umbrella organization for decades for lesbian grassroots organizations. Today, it's completely queer and trans-inclusive. It is not representing and not even articulating lesbian interests anymore. Then furthermore, lesbian spaces like bars, pubs, any other places where lesbians could be together. Public reputation, politics and academia, very important. 30, 40 years ago, lesbians were a respected group At least I can tell you for Germany. And there were a lot of publications, discussions, public fora, organizations. It's all gone. State funding of lesbian projects disappeared. Today, all kinds of trans organizations are state-funded, lesbian organizations not. Let's Reloaded in Germany, located in Berlin and other cities, does not get a cent of state funding since we are not trans-inclusive. Very easy. Then another very sad chapter are young lesbians. We perceive the fact that young lesbians don't dare to call themselves lesbians anymore. They have all other kinds of words, but lesbian is not fashionable anymore. It's out of order, out of date, whatever. It is just not used anymore. And last not least, lesbian archives of the older generation. There are many lesbians, of course, who were very active in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and now are reaching old age and would like to leave all their documents and stuff in good hands, and where the stuff is being worked on and preserved. And these possibilities are also disappearing. Okay, now after this inventory, the question is, which strategies has Let's Reloaded been applying so far against transgenderism? The first block of strategies I would like to present to you is, I call, selected events and lectures via Zoom for information of lesbians themselves and for friends. One of the lectures we had was from Sabit, a young detransitioner, whom we had for a Zoom meeting. And she had a talk about detransition in Germany and internationally, one time, the other sex and back. That was very impressive. And it showed for us, for the first time, very personally and intimately, what it means to go on the path of trans and then to turn back, to lose the social community, to lose many contacts, but to get to develop in a way that is at the end much more positive for the woman who is speaking about herself. So that was the case with Sabit. Then, of course, we were dealing with all the literature and all the background and all the misinformation and the information, scientific research and stuff. And I tried to summarize all that in a lecture for lesbians, for all kinds of women and friends, and I had a speech before a larger audience. After I had been deplatformed in Berlin by a left-wing organization who thought that I'm quasi-Nazi. And then Let's Reloaded organized a public place where we could control participants who were listening. And then I had a speech about the impact of transgenderism on lesbians, women, children, on the public at large. And that was, for many people, the first time that I heard about it. Before, I had a Zoom meeting at the yearly Lesbian Spring Festival in Germany. That was per Zoom. And that also was highly appreciated in 2021. Recently, we had a Zoom meeting with Tonje Gjevon, a lesbian artist from Norway, who was very open in her criticism of transgenderism in her art community, and who was heavily discriminated against in her professional work, in her social life, and even her wife suffered discrimination. She was even going to lose her job. So Tonje visited us and was reporting relentlessly on the impact of one of the world's most extreme self-ID legislation and hate crime laws on life as a lesbian and for all women in Norway. We also organized a Zoom meeting with young lesbians who were so brave to participate in so-called dyke marches, but which were not real dyke marches because they were so-called trans-inclusive. But they joined these marches with their own banners and their own speeches, and there were experiences quite a lot of violence. What you see here are Susanne Frances and Liane Timmerman from UK, from Get the L Out, who was also speaking at our Zoom meeting. And we were discussing and informing about strategies on how they defended themselves against this violence. Susanne and Frances report they were using and producing banners, flyers, sticky labels, flags at dyke and trans pride marches, videos, documentation, and they were filing penal charges. Liane, the UK representative of the counter demonstrations against dyke marches, said, no announcement of counter demonstration or interventions, training of the own members, disguise, flyers, body cams, short videos, small actions with interviews to the press, and the own group is a sworn community of activists. Strategy summarized: stay course, reach out lesbians, don't get worn out at multiple dyke marches, put sticky labels in public spaces, for example, at supermarkets, recruit young lesbians via the internet, be a role model, provide spaces, distribute flyers. We are going to continue these strategy discussions, which we deem very important. The next block of strategies is publication. We try to publish gender-critical articles in readers, in books, in newspapers. It is a very hard job in Germany to be successful on that for lesbian feminists. However, recently I was successful to write an article in a legal manual for equal opportunity officers in Germany. It's called a contra article against the emerging self-ID law in Germany. And I got to quite positive feedback on that so far. The third block are legal opinions on emerging self-ID and hate speech laws in Germany, addressed to politicians and holders of political mandate since 2020. At the bottom, you see a document that has been accepted by our federal German Federal Parliament Committee for the Interior and Home committee document with a certain number. It was very hard to get, but we got it. So our document, our critical statement in 2020, it was a bill of the Green Party on self-ID, was posted on the website of that committee for the Interior and Home. That was a success. Also, we are participating in legal opinions to the United Nations. Recently, the deadline for the country report, Germany, came up. It was in early April. And Let's Reloaded, as a non-governmental organization, has submitted a statement on the human rights situation in Germany to the UN Human Rights Council. At issue is the emerging self-ID law having a detrimental impact on the rights of women, in particular lesbians, as well as children. Another very cumbersome strategy is entering into a discussion with mostly conservative politicians of the German Federal Parliament, because it's they who lastly will decide what is going to happen with this self-ID bill that has been produced by the German Minister for Family and Women's Affairs and the Justice Minister. And we had some quite interesting discussions, and it became clear very quickly that many conservative politicians are gender critical and have an open ear and an open eye to that issue. We also joined signature campaigns with other women's or lesbian or gay groups. One of them is the German chapter of Let Women Speak. We signed protests against conflating gender identity with sex in an EU directive bill on violence against women and domestic violence to be considered by the EU Parliament. That is exactly that what my pre-speaker Nicoletta Hoffmann was mentioning. And the second signature campaign was the criminal prosecution of Christina Ellingsen, Norway, due to hate speech laws. And we signed a protest letter to the Norwegian ambassador in Berlin. Another signature campaign we participated in was from LGBT Alliance, UK and Germany, against the homophobic expert Victor Madrigal-Borlos from United Nations Human Rights Secretariat, UNSOGI is the abbreviation. Now comes the practical side. We participated in demonstrations. The first one was organized by Let Women Speak Germany in front of the Nordic embassies in support of Christina Ellingsen, what I just mentioned. And the second one was organized by Radfem Berlin together with Get the L Out, WDI Germany, Let Women Speak, against the emerging self-ID bill in Germany. One of the guest speakers was, hello, Sheila Jeffries from WDI UK. You will see a couple of photographs here where at the bottom right, there's a list of speakers. The left side is Let Women Speak. And at the bottom, you see the demonstrators. The last demonstration had around 200 female participants. Then we are, of course, also dealing with public relations. We try to keep and to get into contact with media and journalists. We have a website. We keep an eye on social media. And half a year ago, we launched a program complaint against a public broadcaster due to misogynist reporting in context with a Pride March, something like this. The outcome was, you will not believe it, but it's true. The boss of that public broadcasting program in Brandenburg, Berlin, apologized to us and agreed that it was a misogynist report. Gretel Schnell is one of my colleagues at the board of Let's Reloaded, who is in charge for social media. Yeah, now, last not least, alliances. We are a small organization, and of course there are many others. And we try to find synergies, to find mutual platforms. First of all, the Real Dyke March. These were the young lesbians who were intervening into the queer dyke marches, what I told you before. Then with WDI USA, the Lesbian Caucus, we had a couple of Zooms together. We were discussing the Lesbian Bill of Rights. Then the Lesbian Spring Festival, the German Lesbian Spring Festival. By the way, it's called the former Lesbian Witzen Festival, which had been founded by the Lutz group and the HAW group in the early 70s, actually in 1973. Then Safia e.V., it's a lesbian group, an organized, registered lesbian group of lesbians age 40 plus, who are considering and thinking about how to live in old age. Then we have WDI UK and Germany, of course, lectures, Zoom meetings, dissemination of information. Then we have Get the L Out UK, Zoom meetings, dissemination of information on Let's Reloaded website, and especially lesbian strategies at queer dyke marches. Very important for us. Then, as I mentioned already, Let Women Speak, signature campaign, demonstration, exchange of information. Then parents of trans teens. That is a future contact, because there we are dealing mostly with medical facts. Then LGB Alliance Germany and UK, and in the future, the Lesbian Project UK, we are going to initiate a contact together with WDI Lesbian Caucus in the near future. So what is to be done? In a nutshell, networking, promotion of lesbian visibility, preservation of our history, and request of government funding, last not least. Christiane Herdl is one of my colleagues at our board. There's a lot to do. Let's get it done. Thanks a lot.